Okay, first of all, could you give me your name, please, and your charge?
I'm Peter Betts, and I'm Director of International Climate Change in the Department of Energy and Climate Change in the UK.
Okay, what are you guys going to talk about here specifically?
We're going to talk about how we can get an agreement in the first instance in Lima in the next month, and then in the big agreement in Paris next year that will help tackle climate change.
What is the most important point that you're gonna talk about? We see now that climate change is a big deal, right? Everything is melting and stuff like that. So, specifically, what is the most important thing that you're going to talk about?
I suppose there's a couple of things that we really need to do in Lima that we need to prepare. The countries here are countries who work together very closely, and we have a shared agenda to get a good agreement. And so, first of all, we need to think about how we can agree on the shape of a text that we can begin to negotiate next year. And another issue is, how do we get a balanced agreement where there is a strong action to reduce emissions, but there's also support available for developing countries to adapt to the impacts of climate change, but also receive money to help them tackle their emissions.
I went to COP16 in Cancun, and they were talking about something about China, I think, and the US, that they are the biggest gas emissions, right?
Yeah.
What kind of agreements you have to talk about with them? Because they are the biggest, right?
Cancun was a very successful meeting led by Mexico, and Mexico has a great tradition in this area. Both the US and China are acting on their emissions, so both their governments are taking very serious action to try to control their emissions. So we're keen to encourage that, but also keen to have a conversation about how we can encourage even greater ambition on all sides, and how we can capture the action these countries are taking in a legal agreement.
How about the UK? What is the UK doing about climate change?
We have under our legislation, we write into our laws the reductions we need to make. So, for example, we are already on track to reduce our emissions by 50% by 2025, and we expect soon to agree our next carbon budget, which will probably require us to reduce our emissions significantly more than that. We also are one of the few countries in the world who are spending 0.7% of our GDP on assistance to developing countries to help them tackle poverty, but also to tackle climate change.
Finally, how important is COP20 in Lima, Peru?
COP20 is a really important meeting, because if it's not successful, we won't get this successful agreement next year in Paris. And we are working very closely with Peru, who are doing a fantastic job, along with some of our other colleagues in the Cartagena group of progressive countries.